Thank you all for being here. Today we're going to be presenting on robotic process automation and how this is being applied in today's enterprises. We will see real-life use cases. We will touch on problems, pain points, and challenges. And we will be also discussing about the future, about the part of artificial intelligence, machine learning, and how is all this being tied up with this new technology. I'm Depi. My name is Depi Harami. You probably know me from the app. I've been sending you messages. And I'm with Softomotive Marketing. Today we have with us DXC Technology. They are former HP. They will be presenting today as our customer. They're using, they will be actually talking about how they are adopting internally robotic process automation to enhance their own processes. Because this is actually what we're all about here today, to discuss about what we can do with RPA. To kick this off, I just want to ask you a quick poll question. So, what percentage of big companies, like companies with 10,000 employees and more, do you think that that are using RPA today? Anyone? None of them. All of them? Not quite. I have a present for the person that guesses the closest percentage. 15%. Who else? 27? Someone else? 60%? No? 80%. Anyone else? Oh, 65, no. So I think that will go to the lady over there because only 10% of the companies are adopting RPA today. And according to Gartner, that's going to be rising up to 40% in 3 years. So let's kick this off. This is going to be very interesting, and I hope that in the next years, when we all gather together, you will say a bigger percentage that's going to be true. A brief introduction about our company. Marios Stavropoulos is our CEO and founder of Softomotive, and he's going to be starting this presentation. Thank you.
Thank you all for being here. Hello. Thank you all for being here, and welcome again. My name is Marios Stavropoulos. I'm the CEO of Softomotive, and we are here, as Depi said, to discuss about RPA and about the implementation of RPA in large organizations. So there are many interesting things that we can discuss about today. We'll start with a presentation from our client and friend, Sai Katmani, which present us how they have implemented RPA in the organization. Then we will move to forming some discussion groups so that we can discuss a few issues that arise to people that are ready to embark to this journey of RPA. And hopefully we'll come up with many useful conclusions. Now, I would like to give you a very short presentation of Softomotive, our company. Yeah, thank you. Okay. We've been in business since 2005. We have more than 6,000 customers worldwide. We have been doing automation since day one. Later on, the term RPA took off, and large enterprises started to show interest in doing this kind of automation. And this led us building the platform that is needed for enterprise-wide adoption of RPA. We have presence in Athens, Greece, UK, USA, and India now. We have some very strong names in our client list, and we have a range of products starting from the small one that is used for quick adoption for RPA, up to our enterprise level product, which is Process Robot, which is used by large enterprises. So, without further ado, let me introduce you Saikat Mani from DXC, former HPE, that will talk about their journey in RPA. Thank you.
We are all here, right? And we want to understand what's this RPA, the new animal in the market is. We are doing RPA for quite some time. Some of the organizations are mature, some are still in the thinking phase where that we should go RPA route, we should not. Is this just a new term or it will fade away in some time as it passes? And most of the organizations are somewhere in the middle, where they are doing small bits here and there, one process, another process. Tactically, they are trying to do RPA, but to deploy in a strategic level where it changes the entire company scenario, I believe that's yet to come, right? And that's why, as a DXC, what we did to implement RPA, what kind of benefit that we derive, and that's the story that I'm going to tell today. Okay. And I believe everybody knows what DXC is all about, right? We are the single largest end-to-end IT company in the world. We have a history, we have HPE, we have CSE, and we basically believe to carry forward the same legacy that we are coming from. Now, before I go into RPA, why RPA and all those stuff, let's understand slightly. Okay, when we talk about shared services organization, anything, we can basically derive any activities that we do inside a shared service organization into 5 buckets. And 3 buckets are there in the screen, right? If I have to divide, I can divide input, I can divide extract, I can divide query, and then I can say either I do a upload process and I either do reporting. Can you tell me any process that you do in your organization, and I can try to put it in these 5 buckets? Anyone? Cash applications, right? So what's the input for cash application? Your bank statement, your remittance, right? We have the download. Okay, we download the bank statement, we download the remittances, and then we basically format into the format that we want. We want to process. We query. If some of the remittances are not matching, we send it back to the bank, right? And once we have the answer to our query, what do we do the next thing? We basically upload into the ERP systems. That's what we do. So any process that you take, you can basically put it into these 5 buckets. And why I'm explaining this? Because that's our philosophy in doing robotics. We want to scale up robotics into a strategic level, not just into a tactical, small side business. But, and there's a big but, I have my process, I can put it into my 5 buckets, but what's the challenges I get? As she said, she thinks cash apps is a separate, it's a big business in itself. It is a big task, manual task. Is all my remittances are in the same format? No. It is in the same language? No. Okay. And what are my pressures? My pressure is to reduce the cycle time. How can I convert, give my ERP system the faster output? How can I update my bank balances faster? How can I get money to the bank faster, quicker? That's what my challenges are. That's what I am aiming to aim the process to. Can I say that my process is standard all across big Fortune 20 or Fortune 500 companies? No. I get invoices, some 1,000 or 10,000 different formats. Can I put RPA and try to convert all those 10,000 formats into a single format standard? Can I? Answer is no. That's why it becomes important for us to basically get into this question. Right? And I believe the answer is yes. Why RPA? But then, most of you are already into the RPA journey, and that's why you are here, because you know what RPA is, you know that we have to implement RPA, and you want to learn more that how can I implement RPA that gives me faster results, better productivity, right? So basically, we try to divide into that, okay, this is how we want, but where we are coming from. So if you look into the history, we started our business with putting new machines, try to improve productivity. When we try to put productivity, the first gen, the cost saving was the focus, right? How do you reduce cost? Then the outsourcing starts, right? You first collected all your process, you create a separate organization so that I can derive value out of, say, consolidation. Once consolidation has its own limit, it reached the top of saving, then you started outsourcing your business. Once you have outsourced, then you basically offshored your business, right? Just to reduce cost. But then what's the future? Future is basically virtualization of this entire work. So if virtualization is the future, how many of you agree that virtualization is the future? Only one? Two? Okay. So this is what Gartner says. Gartner says if you are not into the virtualization journey, by 2016, that is previous year, by 2020, you will not be the top 20 companies that will be working in terms of productivity. And the focus of organization will also start changing from this point onwards. Okay? So if you see the last 2-year survey from HFS, what it says, that as of now, the lift and shift kind of a business that is happening is almost 50% of the market share. But going forward in next 2 years, that business will reduce to 26. So basically, the rest 75% of the market will be transformation. Transformation using robotics, transformation using automation, but there will be transformation. So transformation is here, right? As we say in Game of Thrones, winter is here. Okay, moving on. Why, and answering the same question, why robotics? Who does not want my customers to be happy? Everyone wants, right? Who does not want my processes to be leaner, meaner, faster? Who does not want my processes to be cost effective? Everybody wants that. But there is a penalty to pay, right? If I have to make all these things, I need to invest in huge amount of IT application, IT landscape changes, etc. But that's why the robotics come to picture. Robotics comes because it is a non-invasive technology. You do not change your IT landscape. You just put a robot in front of your IT application as if you are putting a human. That's what the beauty of this entire thing is. And if you are doing some change, then you are not doing robotics. And the best part is, we are everybody is looking for the next big idea, right? We want analysis. We want which all the customers I need to cater to. What are the products I need to sell more? And for that, you need market sense. You need analysis. In today's scenario, you invest heavily into analysis just to make sure you convert your unstructured data into a structured data. But if you implement robotics, the output is structured data. And then you do not have to invest so much. Any BI tool you use, you will have the market analysis. That's the beauty of RPA is. Anyone agrees? Please.
I agree, but I just have may I ask a question?
Please, go ahead.
Because you mentioned the Cash Apps example, but for RPA to work, at least how I see RPA, I don't see this AI or I don't see this as machine learning. You need to learn the robot how to do that. So it means that for every single of those 10,000 remittances you mentioned, you need to teach the robot how to process it, which means you need to do quite an investment to make sure that the robot understands what it needs to do. Now it will work the next time. My view is that this will only really launch when you can do this in the cloud with big data and with machine learning and AI, and not before. Because before you need to make huge investments to actually make it work.
Great. And I really okay, so his question is basically that for robots to work, you need to invest. You need to teach the robots how it works, right? And to teach a robot, you need a huge amount of investment. If there is 10,000 different formats, as I told earlier, you need to teach the robot 10,000 different things, and that's huge investment. So his point is, will it succeed if I have to teach and invest so much into RPA, right? Okay, and I will ask you to hold on to your question, because that's what this entire session is all about. How do you make your RPA work? How do you make sure that you do not teach your robot 10,000 different things? And how do you get the benefit that you are asking for? Thank you. And then there are some tactical benefits into having RPA. Okay? The biggest thing is, what we say is retention of your employees. And you will say, how do I retain my employees if I have to put RPA? Because the entire idea of RPA is that I eliminate my cost, I eliminate the number of people doing my work, how I make less number of people do maximum number of transactions, right? So when you implement robotics, where do we implement? We implement in the most productive work, okay, where we do the maximum number of production as of today. And going forward, if you ask a human who is intelligent, who understands your business, what he will do is, he will try to make sense. He or she, I'm sorry if I have, he or she will never be happy if he keeps doing the same thing day in, day out. He needs to learn new things, right? That's what the psychology of a human is. So what if I give him more analysis? I give her to say that, okay, this is what you are doing day in, day out. Can you make sense for me? And which is the employee who will leave your company just because he or she is not doing repetitive work day in, day out? They will love their job. That's what the retention of the employees is. That's the tactical benefit that we derive out of RPA. And then there is accuracy, there is cost savings. Those are unstated benefits of RPA. And audit trail, compliance. There are a lot of questions today, right? In terms of how do I make sure that my RPA implementation is compliant to my current scenario, right? What is compliance? Compliance is basically follow-up of your rules. That whatever rules have been set, I follow. And that's what the key strength of RPA lies, right? It will always follow the rules. There is no diversion. There is no stakeholders for RPA or stakeholder for the robot. The robot, whatever you train it, you test it, you certify the robot, and the robot will keep doing that consistently. That's why you implement compliance in your systems. And whatever it does, it keeps an audit trail. So if tomorrow you want to find out what it has done, say 7 years back, you can always go and find out from the audit trail, definitely. Okay, but you are doing all this. But what is the shift that you see here? You have staff retention, you have analysis, you have compliance, you have audit. But in today's scenario, there is a shift that is happening. In yester years, people were the key, right? If one people leaves your organization, that was a huge shock. Because people were doing the work with help of, following the processes with help of technology, right? But in today's scenario, when we look forward, that is going to change. People will not do your work. Your production will come from technology, from robots. Robots will follow the processes, and then if they require help, they will go to the people. That's the shift that is happening today, now. And this session is basically one of the key, I will say, markers or milestones, what we can state, that this new paradigm shift is going to take place. Now, if you say, any questions, please, before I move on? Yeah.
Talking about compliance, one of the key elements is segregation of duties.
Definitely.
In ERPs. Can you hear me now?
Definitely.
Better? So one of the questions is relating to user accesses. When you implement robotics, you need to provide user accesses to those robots, and you need to ensure that not a single person that controls all robots can
perform fraud. How do you go about those questions?
Okay, great.
Thank you.
So now, why you require segregation of duties? Fraud, but why fraud happens? Fraud happens because there are external stakeholders, right? I am the AP guy, I get the invoices, and I also release payment. Can I do that? If I do, then I am the single point, right? I have the stake in basically doing fraud. Yes or no?
Sure.
And in the RPA space, you do not have any external stakeholders, right? You have only the content developers and the testers, users. You do not have anything in between. So first thing, you eliminate the root cause of fraud. You remove the stakeholders, right? You remove the what's there for me kind of stuff. Why should I approve this particular invoice? Why should I release this payment? You remove that. Second, I will come to what is the current scenario. We have segregation of duties. We have ERP systems which are divided by AP and AR. Okay? And then we have a different set of accesses to different people. You can do the same thing. You do not have to basically reinvent the wheel. There are companies who are basically investing heavily on digital workforce. Okay, I do not have a slide for digital workforce now. But yes, digital workforce policy, where you create robotics ID. So in today's sense, you are a manager, and I believe there will be a slide deck that will come. You are managing your people. There are 10, 20, or 30 reportees with help of whom you are doing the work. But tomorrow, this particular mix is going to change. Tomorrow, you have to manage your digital workforce. So you will have, say, 5 people doing work for you, and you will have, say, 15 robots also doing work for you. And you are managing cash apps or invoice processing or R2R. So in that scenario, your segregation of duty does not change. Your underlying application, your underlying policy does not change. What changes is, instead of a human, physical human, you are virtualizing this entire environment, entire work. Hope that answers your question. Partially? Okay. Then let's discuss.
Because at the apex of all the controls of all the robots, you might have a single individual that can control the entire machine, and he has unlimited power.
Okay.
And that's the question: is how do you prevent a single individual that has access to all the robotic accounts from accessing everything?
I think let's have a one-on-one and take up that question. Definitely. Thank you for that. Okay.
I cannot know if you can hear me. If I may add to this question, if I may add to this what you just asked, I think that apart from the answer where, of course, you replace some human activity with robotics, and of course, you have more control over that, there are also some lower-level features in RPA tools that help with this. For example, maker-checker controls. You know, everything that is being now in place to prevent fraud can still be automated, and when it is automated, it's also tracked, and you know who did what. So there is also, I know you always have the motive, you know, to go into fraud, like it's an everyday activity. But if you have the automated controls in place, and also if you can separate roles, I think you have as much security as you can at this stage. That helps.
Okay. Thanks, Debbie. So now, moving on. That's what we're talking about, right? Paradigm shift. So today, maximum workforce is basically invested in doing the production. That same scenario is going to change tomorrow. The maximum amount of investment in terms of human labor, you will be basically doing analysis. You will be doing less of control, you will be doing less of production. Maximum thing that you are going to do is basically analysis. What's the next big idea? How do I make my process better? Which customers do I need to cater to? What kind of products I need to sell? How do I enhance my process better? And this is how is going to be your next big thing. Now, we talked about robot, right? Why robotics? Why RPA? Let's understand how do I implement that in my organization. Okay, and I believe that's why we are all here. the first thing that, or the most key element, or how will I say, the base tone of any RPA execution strategy is to identify first where I am going to implement the RPA into, the process selection criteria. Okay? And for that we start with the value stream mapping. Where are my VAs are, where my NVAs are. Okay? Basically wherever we feel there is a rule based, simple, non-value added activity, I can always go ahead and put it into RPA. Wherever I see there is values, I need to basically think how can I put a human over there. We are doing less, but how can we do more? Process selection criteria. Okay? And all the great generals, if you see, I am little bit diverging from RPA, going into history, right? Any great general, if you see, starting from Wellington to Houston or to anybody else, they chose their own battleground, right? And they won. That's what the great generals are. Same thing for RPA. When you say RPA, what are the process I need to choose? I need to choose the process which are more than 70% of rule based, these are the processes that can add value to my business. There are very low touch points into the business. There are no multiple hops between various teams. There is no the key point here is, whenever we look into RPA, can I, whatever investment I have already done into IT systems, into infrastructure, can I leverage that? Can I augment from the starting point whatever we have already and then build upon it? That's the basic idea of RPA is. I am not going to create something new. I am not going to invest very heavily into same kind of infrastructure that I already have invested earlier. That's what the augmentation is all about. How can I augment from my current reality and push forward without or very less investment from that point forward? And that's why saying that augments existing automation. I am not building new. I am not building a new ERP system. I am not upgrading. I have my mainframe that is running in my apps from 1980s. Do I need to go ahead and change that? RPA says no. That's what it is all about. But, and big question is but, everybody want to choose the battleground. But what's the numeric figure for that? Can I convert this processes that I have, let's say 100 processes, and convert them into an index that, okay, into a sequential order, that the first process is better than the last process in terms of automation? Can I do that? How many of your business leaders will agree that, okay, you also do RPA, I also do? There are, when you sit into a governance table, you have your R2R manager and your invoice processing manager. Can you convince them that your process is more suited to RPA and others is not? Either they will agree that my process is too complex, too unique, and I should not implement RPA, or they will say, if there are cost pressures in the company, that, okay, my process first. But can you convince them by a number that this is where you stand? Can you? That's what this index comes into picture, and we call it robotics probability index. What we do is, it is a this index is a function of few things. It is the function of your input. It is function of your process standardization. It is the input of your system types, right? And based on this three and based on varied percentages, you can basically come up with a figure which will tell you where your process stands today in terms of robotics. Will your robotics practice, if you implement here, will succeed, or you will face challenges? That's why this RPA number makes sense, and it is important. Yes, sir.
It's a very short question, so I hope everybody can hear it, but if you use Agile, do you still need this?
Okay, good question. You will use Agile, right? But what will be the first sprint? Who will answer that question?
The product owner.
Product owner. Based on what?
On his judgment.
Judgment. So what we are trying to do here? We are trying to remove judgment and make it rule-based. This is what the rule is. Any questions on RPI? Okay, let's move forward. Basically, when you implement RPI and you start indexing your process based on which is more suitable for automation, which is less suitable, what you will find out is basically the best fit are the processes which has high cycle time. If you say sales, analytics kind of work, processes which has very high number of FTEs like your invoice processing, user access management, UAM, okay, where there is a fluctuation in demand, okay, where your sales team makes maximum number of sales in the quarter end or start of the month, where you require number of people who do the processing, let's say 10x at the month end, quarter end or year end. You have a backlog, right? And always you have in your contracts that, okay, if your volume exceed this much, you will not basically go ahead and count that for your SLA. But that's business. What is the customer? Has he made any fault by purchasing your product at the quarter end? For his part, that his invoice is getting processed at the end. He has not made any mistake. Why his invoice has to be processed at the end? Why it will take around 10 days for him to get his money back? No. That's what the biggest RPA implementation is. It levels your backlog. It levels your peak volumes. You have the flexibility to basically put more number of robots, thus basically eliminate the number of people you require in the year end, month end, and you basically put a smooth line over it. You have standardized and structured data, right? How many processes you have structured data? Very few. You receive your PO, right? PO could be your standard, because as a company, you ask your client to always send the PO in a certain format. Some company do, some company do not. But then you have a structured data over it. If you have the structured data, you can go ahead and implement RPA. That's easy. And then you have the digitized data, where we have the, when I say a new word called lights out, right? Lights out automation means you do not require any office space, any physical infrastructure, you don't require any people. Everything is virtual. That's what the definition of lights out is. And RPA implementation, where it gives you maximum benefit, is when your scenario is lights out. And that's what we can get in our data centers. Because in data centers, there's huge army of people who just monitors the health of the servers. Okay, and I believe most of are from F&A background, so that example may not make sense, but that's how the business is. All the servers basically send their data in digitized format. They say what is the utilization, they say what's the power consumption, they will say if there is any problem, they are reaching their peak, but the data is in digitized format. And that's why it becomes easier to implement RPA. And we can get basically the 100% robotics kind of a scenario, that is the lights out scenario. Okay. Now, how do I basically go ahead and implement robotics? We understand why RPA. We understood how to select a process. Now, once we have selected a process, how do I basically go ahead and implement a robot over there? We basically divide this entire process into 5 steps, or 5D methodology that we call it. Start from discover, go till deploy, where we basically get the benefits out of it. And in between, we have design, we have deploy, etc. Basically, in the discover phase, as we said earlier, we try to find out, we do RPI, we do a lot of stuff to identify what are my candidates for robotics. And in the define phase, once we have identified, we basically define our scope. What exactly we are going to do for cash apps process? What exactly I am going to deliver at end of my robotics for this invoice processing process? That's what we basically define in our define bucket. And then it comes to the design, where exactly the robot is designed to build and the development is done. Basically, the teaching of robotics happens in the design phase, or the configuration of robots happen based on what technology you basically choose over there. And then the deploy phase. Deploy phase is where we basically go ahead and ask a user to validate a robot, to tell us or the configurators that this robot basically meets all their business criteria. It meets their compliance, it meets their TAT, it meets their SLA. And it does what it's supposed to do. It does not break any rules. That's what the deploy phase is all about. And then deliver is basically taking out the benefit. You scale up your robot, you start with one person, then roll up to one more center, you roll up to one more geography, you scale worldwide. That's what the deploy is, and that is the place where you basically derive your benefits. Whatever method you choose waterfall, you choose agile, basically you can follow this. Any questions, please? Good. So basically, these are the outputs that we generally means. Each stage we identify from this particular activity. Okay. So we are here in the journey of robotics. Okay. We set target first. We analyze what are my RPI or what is my index it about, what is my roadmap for let's say 5-6 years that I need to build it today using RPI, and whatever, if I use agile, I can use agile. And then once I have prioritized my actions, I have to validate against that. This is the more important, right? If I am not able to validate my target against the specified time, there is no point, because RPA is something that if you start doing it, it tends to become your process as it is. Today you are doing it manually, processing invoice, you start teaching a robot, and then that process keeps going on and on and on. It never comes up. So it becomes a very critical checkpoint for you. You need to decide what's my ROI. What is the time that you have set a target on, that by this date my robot has to finish. It has to basically start taking up my manual work. Am I there or not? And that's why keep validating your target against and again, each month, each quarter, each year, so that you stay on your target, you stay on your path. And then basically you have your production release, sign off, etc. Basically any SDLC that you can follow for RPA. But the biggest difference is when we used to look for projects in erstwhile SDLC methodology, each project was unique, right? We used to do project in a single project, and that SDLC used to follow each steps. But what we are saying here is, let's think little different. Let's make it a strategic initiative rather than a single project tactical initiative. And that's the benefit out of it. And why benefit? Let me take you through that. This is what we are doing today. Okay? The idea of robotics in a box is that tomorrow any of my business owner comes to me and say, I need RPA in my process. You do not have to reinvent the wheel again. You should have the capability to just turn out a single robot for him and ask him to start using it, maybe within 4 weeks, 8 weeks max, right? If you say, no, I will take around 6 months to 9 months, then the enthusiasm is gone. Your management of change is gone. The business owner will say, okay, let me figure it out, what I can do. Right? But how do you basically implement the concept of robotics in a box? What we are saying is, let's take the analogy what it is putting here. I have a screwdriver. Do I need a screwdriver for each type of screw? If I have a square shape screw, I need a different driver with a head, with a platform each time. So if I have to do some work, I need some 20 different types of screwdrivers. Can I convert that? I have the single base for all my robots and just the widgets. That's where it interacts with the underlying application. I need to change. I need to develop only this particular piece of work, nothing else. My entire platform remains same. My IT platform remains same. My application platform remains same. My common process platform remains the same. And if it was a gathering of IT guys, I could have taken you deeper into this, how we achieved this. but I believe we are all business owners, right? So I will skip that part. But the idea is that we think strategic. We basically only develop the part which interacts with your application. You do not go ahead and reinvent the wheel each and every time you implement robots in a process. That's the idea from this slide. Now, some of the use cases or platforms that we try to implement in DXC, and that has bring value to us. Okay. When we started implementing robotics initially we were saying that for each and every process that there was a separate user interface that was required. Why? User interface was required to manage fallouts, because if there is any thing that robot was not able to process, it will require a human intervention, right? It has to go to human. Where and how it will go to human? How will the human identify where the robot has got stuck? There was no way to know that. Then, as I said, today the process manager also need to take care of his digital workforce. How will he know what is his robots doing versus what are the requests your humans are processing? Because your client will not bother if you are doing through robot or you are doing through human. He will basically bother about one thing: is my SLA managed or not managed? And that's why this platform basically helped me to manage that. And by doing this platform, what I am doing is I am saving 30% of my time in each robotic application that I do going forward. So once deployed, then I just need to onboard each and every process going forward. I don't, and what it gives me, it gives my business owners a unified graphic user interface and a management console. Same management console will give me my analytics. It will give me what is my SLA, where I am with the target, what is my backlog, and it will also tell me how many requests are getting processed through human, how many are through process, what is my adoption rate. It will give you basically the entire floor management experience from a single user interface. Next, one more platform, SSOW. What does SSOW does? Or what does the RPA come to picture? When one application, let's say one ERP does not talk to another ERP. You have your workflow in AP, where you get your PDFs, you get your invoices. When your platform does not speak to your ERP, where you do your money management, it does not speak to your SAPs of the world. What you do? Or you have two ticketing systems. One ticketing system does not speak to another ticketing system. There is a gap between IT applications. That's where the SSOW come into picture. SSOW's work is basically take data from one application, put it into another, and vice versa. It is a bi-directional work, keeps going on day in, day out. And that's where the maximum number of RPA use cases are as of today, right? So first time when you developed SSOW, we took around 8 weeks to develop. And as we move forward, what we did was created a base platform. Okay, and the base once it is created, any new request that comes for a SSOW kind of a work, we evaluate what is the commonality between the base platform to the new process. And we segregate or bucket it between 20, 40, 60. And based on that, we give timelines. If it is 20, it is 1 week that we just develop and deploy. If it is 60, it is basically 4 weeks. Still, I am saving 50% of the time that I used for deploying the first platform. And that is what the beauty of the platform approach is all about. Basically, reducing the concurrent time in development as you move forward, as you mature more and more, as you basically enhance more and more RPA into your organization. That's what the platform approach is. Then we have this eCPQ, or the quoting process. Okay. This process is based out of 19 countries, 3 different geographies. And when we created the first platform, it took us around 4 months or 16 weeks to develop. Once we have done the base platform, and then incremental geography that we started implementing start happening within first iteration took us 4, next iteration took us week. And now we are at a stage, if I have to onboard a new country in my quoting system, I just need a week time, because it is multilingual. So any new language that I need to cater, or any new language that I need to understand from the coding application kind of stuff, I just need to onboard the ASCII characters, that's it. Okay. Any new process that you have, so I have set of rules. I just need to take which rule to be applicable to this particular code validation process. And that's how we basically implement robotics or the platform. Okay. Already discussed RWF. Let's move on. Okay. This is what I was talking about swivel. Bidirectional, problem solving record cases, plug and play kind of approach. So let's say you have two different processes who are very similar. Do you have to implement robotics again? No. Just it is a plug and play kind of stuff. You are not, and if even some of you are in the shared services business, right? And you have various clients come up with same kind of a problem. So you do not reinvent the robot or recreate the robot, you just plug and play. You pick up from one client, you change the underlying data and then implement into the other client. Simple. Yes, please.
Does it mean you need to replicate your databases?
Data or database?
The data.
Data, no.
You save it somewhere.
Yeah. You do not replicate your data because you do not share one data of one client with
Sorry
another.
to interrupt you. What was the question? Can you repeat the question?
Okay. The question is, do you need to replicate the data or not, or the database or not, if you do a plug and play from one client to another? So database, yes, because database holds your structure, not the data. You do not replicate your customer data with one client with another. That's strict no. Okay. That is what I was explaining. If you move from one client to another, one account to another, how fast you can become or how efficient you can become by deploying the platform approach, by using the plug and play method. Now, this is basically the objective, right, on the example of why robotics. How do I know that my robotics implementation is a success or not? If I am able to reduce my cost of RPA into this figure, if I am, then I am successful. If I am not, then basically it does not make ROI for me to go ahead and implement robotics. And I believe you already know all these figures, right? You deal with day in, day out. Okay, so basically this explains the cost of production or cost of one FTE worth of resource to do any work over the period of time from from geographies with high cost of FTEs to what we have today. So as I explained at the start of the conference, that first we had consolidation, okay, then we have outsourcing, and once we have outsourcing, we start doing best sourcing. Best sourcing is basically moving work from high cost location into Philippines, Romania or East Europe, India, right? And now we are at a stage that we are basically leveled out in terms of cost saving. So the question is, what next? That's what it speaks. That if a RPA robot costs you around $5,000 to implement, okay, or to run, basically not implement, sorry, to run. Anywhere. It is geographic agnostic, right?
5,000.
That's what we figured it out. Or basically, and it will, okay, based on how you mature, that may go up and down based on this thing. But yes, this is kind of figure that we are looking at. That answer your questions. Okay. Any other questions, please? Okay. If you are there, then let's see some use cases that were employed. Okay. At the start of the conference, we asked a lot of questions that what you want to see in terms of use cases, right? And I believe you answered that you want to see something in cash apps. Some of us said they want some very specific. I do not have a slide for cash apps because there's very specific reason why. Because our use cases are agnostic of what the process is. That's what my first deck said, right? Any activity that we do today in shared service organization, I can basically divide into 5 different buckets, right? What are those 5 buckets? Anyone? Yes. Download, extract. Please.
I gave 3, download, upload, and extract.
Okay, that's query, not extract.
Somebody here just give another.
Query.
I forgot
Query.
to promise gifts for that to begin with, but I do have.
Query, then you do the processing or uploading into ERP, and last one is reporting. Okay, so same thing, you do it in cash apps, you do it in invoice processing. So use case is not that which process I can implement or my process is unique. No, your process is not unique. That is very heartbreaking to know that your process is not unique. You can put it in those 5 buckets. What I am trying to explain here is how can we do those use cases within those 5 buckets. So my first example is order management. Okay, order management, as you know, a PO comes in, you do a set of validations. Once the validations are done, you put it into your ERP send it to your factory. That's it. Very simple process. Will anybody agree order management is a simple process? It is not. It is very, very complex because the number of POs is very, very high, or the formats, if depend upon country to country, it's multilingual, multi-structured, multi-formatting. Okay. The number of rules for each product, there are some starting with minimum 30, it goes up to 60 or 70 different type of rules. I am not talking about FMCG market. Even if it FMCG, the number of rules that you validate a PO is around minimum of 20 to 30. You check what is the price, you check what is the date, you check with factory that the products are available, will you be able to meet the set deadlines, yes or no, everything's are there. And it is very, very manual intensive work. What we did here is we implement a robot which basically started taking care of this entire lights out scenario. Okay. So if it is a single line PO, if it is a because it meets some certain criteria that for certain products, it will directly do the validation on it. It will go all 5 or 7 different applications to basically check, and then it will post it into ERP. That's what the robot does. What is the impact? It immediately reduced my cost to 45%. Right? It reduced the cost because the number of FTEs are not required. I require FTEs only to process my corner cases or the fallouts where RPA is not able to follow. My KPI, it used to take me 4 days to post a order previously. Now I am able to do it within 8 hours with all the exceptions and everything. That's a huge saving for me. Almost 175% jump in the one metrics. And same thing, there are different metrics that we follow. It has to do that. Scalability, I am able to implement the same process for 26 different countries for doing order management just by implementing the platform approach. And as we all know, order management is a complex process. And
just a question back to the, I suppose, the digitized data and the standard data. If you don't, and we don't have that in our order management.
Terrible, sorry to interrupt, but we cannot hear you.
So I suppose the question is, in situations where you don't have digitized data on the input and you don't have standard data on the input, does that completely negate the ability to involve robotics in the process?
Definitely no. Definitely no. Because the use case that I am showing here is, we do not have digitized data. Okay? We are doing PO. PO is manual. It is PDF. We do an OCR. We do everything else. Let's say I have a EDI implemented, electronic order invoicing, right? If I have a EDI, still I will require robotics. I need to take that digitized data, put it. In those scenarios, it is a direct process. It is a lights out process. But in case of, if you put an OCR, if you put some validation, there are fallouts. Though it will be 45%, if it is digitized data, this 45% go up to 90%, right? It depends upon what is your threshold. And now, somebody was asking about AI, right? Let's say this particular pass where I am receiving the invoices or sorry PO or purchase orders, and I need to train my robot each and every time for 10,000 different scenarios, right? Will it make ROI for me to train or invest in 10,000, teaching the robot 10,000? Let's say just a thumbs up rule, it takes 1 week for me to train one format. So for 10,000, how many weeks it will take or how many man months it will take, you can. So that is what the AI comes into picture. AI, you teach a very similar PDF that okay, you need to pick 5 or 7 data fields from one invoice, and next time after teaching 100 or 400 different type of scenarios, AI will start picking up on its own. That's what, so that's what when we looked into our previous slide deck, what's the future? That's what the future is. That if we want to make ROI, we have to use AI in this type of scenario where my input type is unstructured. Otherwise, it becomes very difficult for me to basically get and complete the project on time. That's what the underlying principle is.
Sorry, Saket, I just wanted to have a kind of a comment and a question. Given the fact that the metrics that you've identified here would result, obviously, in a cycle time reduction, have you explored, or would you agree that another very important metric is the impact on customer satisfaction or customer experience? Because obviously less exceptions, and also, in theory, they should be getting the orders faster with less touch points that the client, the customer of the order management process has to have as well. Is that something that you've looked at, or is that kind of a next phase on metrics as well?
If you remember the slide deck that we said, why robotics? Customer or customer satisfaction at the top of that, right? So when I explain the process, I just say KPI means cycle time reduction was only one of the KPIs. But when I say KPI, it is a host of 10, 20 different KPIs that we measure, starting from my productivity, from my customer, from my cycle time, from accuracy, from compliance. It comes to the entire host of different matrices, right? It is not just one matrix. And thank you.
And I would like to add to that. So, what's your name? Okay, Rochelle. We also have, I think that your question was to tie this up to a certain KPI for, exactly, yes. So we do have customers that are tying this to their internal KPIs, for example, net performance scores for customers, and they actually report directly to that score. This can be tied up very easily through the dashboard and the analytics. Yeah, the action robots. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. So moving on to the next use case, the code generation. Code generation is one of the toughest job in any organization, right? And this basically impacts your P&L directly. So how do you do that? How do you make sure the request that has come for selling a different product, how do you basically make it a rule-based work? That's what the challenge in this particular code generation. So let's say I am selling server. That's what we do in HPE earlier, erstwhile. And this is an example of my HPE days, not DXC days. We are very new. Okay. So I have a list of, say, bill of material with 1,000 different line items. And each line item basically requires, has a list price. And customer basically asking me that, okay, I want 30% discount straight on this process. Can I give him 30% discount on all the list of items that is there? Answer is no. I need to basically make sure which products I am making more margin, which product I am making less margin of, and I do a permutation combination across all this 10,000 or 1,000 line items and give them the pricing, which is basically matching or overestimates at least closer to the what customer is required. If I try to do that manually, it will take me around 4 to 5 hours just to do this permutation combination across Excels and other different tools. If I do it using RPA, I just do a business query. It does in 5 minutes for me. That's what the impact of code generation process is. Initially, my turnaround for code used to be 4 hours before I can basically cater to a request. And then we used to have a huge backlog at the year end and the month end when we make maximum number of sales, and the requests for quotes are high. Using this process, we were able to generate and send back the quote within 30 minutes. The code generation process takes only 5 minutes. But what we have done is, the amount of backlog that was there for manual processing has been reduced. So any new request come, either it is catered to the robotics or it is catered to human, within 30 minutes the code can go out to the customer. And that basically enhances my customer experience. It helps my sales team, and sales team is happy because now they feel that, wow, I am being catered to faster. And accuracy has gone up. There is no way that robot will calculate any figure which is wrong. All the products are right. My compliance have gone up. So there is no extra pressure from the sales guy. Oh, you need to basically immediately change this code and put it different thing. No, it is a robot that is doing. So there is no pressure, no stakeholders. My compliance is there, my accuracy is there, and I have my faster turnaround time. Dunning letters. And I believe this is one of the easy use cases that are there, where we keep sending keep sending letters for collections when there is a missed payment from any of our client. And as of now, every team has 30, 40 guys doing this work, any large organization. Okay? But it's easy work to do. You just take out the report, create a mail and send it based on some values. And you can put roles that on if it is a US geography or a US client, don't send within this business hours. If it is a EMEA client, don't do that, all those rules. And then there is always compliant, that you send out the mail within the stipulated time period. And you can always check back the robot, because as a human you can miss checking that the payment has come or not come. But robot will do it each and every time. So you have your customer satisfaction over there. There is no email or redundant email that goes to the customer for payment when he has already made it. And then the incident management. And this is what we talk about, lights out kind of automation, data center. So the incident management is, you need to basically assign a human each and every time there is a problem with any of your infrastructure, hardware or anything else. Okay? How do you do that? Basically you have a team of people who keeps monitoring the queues or the inputs that are generated out of the servers. And it is quite huge, as to say it, and you have to manually match one by one. And as you see any problem in any of the incidents, you need to raise a ticket and then assign it to the expert, right? And this type of people in every shared service organization are huge, who caters to the ITIO business or the data server business or data center business. We were able to reduce huge amount of people just doing this work. Robot will now keep monitoring the health of the server, and as soon as it's figured out that okay, there is some problem, it will raise a ticket directly to the expert. It does not have to go through all those checks and balances. It will do this work each and every time right on target. Okay. Any questions, team, on this one? No? Okay. So that brings us to the end of our discussion. Okay. But one disclaimer over here. What RPA is not. That's very important point. RPA is not a physical robot, right? It is not an Excel macro. We don't do that. That's not RPA. It is just not a screen scraping automation. No, it is not. It is not transfer of data from legacy system to source system. No, it is not. It is not any scripts. It is what it is then. It is a style of automation, okay, where we mimic what a human does. That's what the RPA we talk about. And that is the crux of this entire discussion that we have. Thank you all for listening. Thank you. Marius.
Thank you, Saikat. That was very insightful indeed. It's It's clear from what you have presented us that you are pushing RPA to the edge, and we are very excited to know that Softomotive technology is a core part of your effort. We take this as an implicit proof of the maturity and robustness of our solution. Now, at this part, we would like to move to a more interactive phase of the workshop. I would like to make a few questions.
Since we just experienced some use cases there, how many of you are actually involved in RPA deployments? Oh, okay, good percentage. And I take it that a little bit, a bigger number is involved in researching of RPA for an actual, they are in the first steps of implementation, right? How many of you? Okay. So the rest of you probably are just looking around, like curious to learn about the new technology and how to get started with it. Okay, so this sounds like 3 good groups to be split to. So why don't we just take, I think I saw a lot of hands from the implementation side around here, I think so. Who has implemented RPA? There? 1, 2. Yeah, okay, so I'm gonna be moving you around a little bit, sorry, but it's time to move up. Okay.